it.
He's a Yorkie, and he's really little.
Amazing.
And he's an amazing dog.
You posted pictures of him before.
No, that was Emma. That was another dog.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, because the other day I posted something and then you posted a picture of Chewy. Like, get a dog to keep yourself company.
But Chewy's new. And he's totally sweet. And
Chewy's perfect.
He's perfect.
Aww.
And so I'm gonna put him down because he was asleep at my feet, but I wanted you to meet him.
Thank you.
Chewy.
So, okay, so I have like a little spiel prepared. So it's gonna take me just a few minutes to like share what I prepared. And then you can share your poems, and then you can pause. And I just wanted to, I have a question for you. So like read and then just pause whenever you're ready, and then we can talk a little bit or continue the conversation we were having before. So, okay, so I'm gonna continue. And I wrote this whole thing out, so disculpa that I have to write it out or I'll go off on a tangent. But buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la palabra. I'd like to welcome our esteemed author, Benjamin Alire Sáenz. As far as we know, we're not related, but it's still Sáenz double trouble today. I know folks are, oh, that's the wrong line. Okay, sorry. I want to share a bit about Benjamin before he begins to read. Then he'll read, we'll chat again, and then we'll close out with his poems. So I have to admit that I only read Benjamin's work for the first time a year ago. I had friended him on Facebook before that because he had written a post on Frantz Fanon, whose work, The Wretched of the Earth, was a cornerstone of my own political development. And I had never heard a Chicano reference Fanon before, so I followed him. And still I did not read his books, but last summer during Macondo, my workshop homie, Saul Hernandez, told me to read Everything Begins and Ends at the Kentucky Club. He said it was the ultimate study in imagery, authenticity, and writing choices. Saul said he reads the book at least twice a year to remind himself what is possible in writing. So I got the book, I read it in like 2 days. I didn't put it down, I just went straight through. And Benjamin became sealed in my heart as a writer whose work can inform my life as a mujer chicana, mother, writer, and compañera. Since reading the book, I have followed more closely his Facebook posts, and each time I learned something new about him and about how to live my own life. And in this time of turmoil and transformation, I copied one of his recent posts that he wrote when he submitted his sequel to Aristotle and Dante, and I saved it on my telephone. And my son and I were walking recently, and my son is an artist, and he told me that he was really struggling with his process and, you know, kind of his hesitation, and he was kind of at a crossroads in this video he was creating. And so I read to him what Benjamin had posted. And, you know, we were hiking at the time, the sun was setting, my phone screen was lighting up my face. You know, and the first stars were appearing and the LA skyline was starting to light up. And, you know, I read this post by Benjamin, and when I finished, you know, my 16-year-old son said, you know, I understand that now that frustration and pause is just part of our process. And, you know, we kept walking, and I just thought, wow, this is what Ben's writing does. It, you know, enters into a conversation between a mother and her son on a dirt trail surrounded by California chaparral, you know, with the moon rising, and his work changes lives. So, you know, without further ado, I'm going to read his bio. Poet, novelist, and children's author Benjamin Alire Sáenz was born and raised in New Mexico. He earned a BA in Humanities and Philosophy from St. Thomas Seminary in Denver, Colorado, studied theology at the University of Louvain in Leuven, Belgium, and was a priest in El Paso, Texas for a few years before leaving the order. He returned to school, earning an MA in creative writing from the University of Texas at El Paso, and studied in PhD programs at the University of Iowa and at Stanford University, where he was awarded a Wallace Stegner Fellowship, and under the guidance of Denise Levertov, amazing, completed his first book of poems. Absolutely amazing, amazing. Sáenz is the author of 4 additional poetry collections: Dark and Perfect Angels, winner of the Southwest Book Award, Elegies in Blue, Dreaming the End of War, and the Book of What Remains. Sáenz's short story collection, Everything Begins and Ends at the Kentucky Club, won him one of the country's top writing prizes, the PEN Faulkner Award for fiction, making him the first Latino, the first Texan, the first Southwesterner, and the only second gay writer to claim the coveted prize. The book has also received the Lambda Literary Award for gay fiction and was named a Stonewall Honor Book by the American Library Association. He has authored several books for children and novels for adults and young adults, including Names on a Map and Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, winner of the Lambda Literary Award, the Stonewall Book Award, and Amelia Elizabeth Walden Award honor, the Pura Belpre Narrative Medal for Latino Fiction, and the Michael L. Printz Award honor for Young Adult Fiction. Sáenz lives and works in El Paso, Texas. I am so thankful you are with us today, Benjamin, to share your heart and your life. Adelante.
It's great to be here. The first poem I want to read is from Elegies in Blue. It's no longer in print, but I have a poem I wrote for James Baldwin, who is one of my heroes since high school. I read The Fire Next Time when I was in high school, and I just thought, who's this guy? And I read all his stuff, through the years. And what I loved really about his essays, was that his rage was so elegant. It was just like incredible. He was such a disciplined and brilliant mind that his honesty and his moral center transcended his rage. Unbelievable. But I wrote this poem for him, and it's called The Stranger Goes Home, for James Baldwin. The world is white no longer, and it will never be white again. I don't remember when it was I started reading you. By then I was a man, angry, the world having caught up with me, no longer able to pretend the rage did not exist. Sometimes I could feel it. I could feel its heat, fire blazing in the riot of my heart. And in the cold, believe me, any fire's warm. It took me years to understand the aesthetic of an angry crowd, the logic of its chaos. I never recognized my own contorted face, my own inhuman among the shouting in the streets. I was educated. I was civilized. The price of the ticket did not matter. I would have paid anything to be loved by the America I refused by this America. I refused my supporting role among the throngs of perdition. I would have paid anything. But you were right, Jimmy. Rage becomes a daily bread, sweet as a communion wafer, and almost as holy. One more thing, rage can be silent as my Catholic God. Rage can only with difficulty and never entirely be brought under the domination of the intelligence, and is therefore not susceptible to any arguments whatsoever. And you were right again. Those who've never felt the rage have small imaginations. So here I am, So many years later, a Chicano returning from the desert, picking up your book again, like I was picking cotton, and learning late to give the land that gave us breath the dreadful name it's earned. Rage is a hard companion. It turns the heart to stone, not yours. Your heart was always flesh, but wounded too. I sometimes saw your bruises on the page. When I was told it takes time, when I was young, I was being told it will take time before a Black person can be treated as a human being. But it will happen. We will help to make it happen. We promise you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream of you writing in your room. The room as spare as it is blinding white. The white is killing you. And isn't it that the way it always was? Por los siglos de los siglos, isn't that the way it always has been? I see you spelling Giovanni over and over, mistrusting your own knowledge and intelligence, doubting even your ability to spell. And in those brutal seconds, succumbing to despair. What has happened in the time of my time is the record of my ancestors. No promise was kept with them. No promise was kept with them. No promise was kept with them, with me, nor can I counsel those coming after me, nor my global kinsmen, to believe a word uttered by the morally bankrupt and desperately dishonest countrymen. Jimmy, when you died, did you think of Jesus? Did you recall your father's God? Did he shout, reject, condemn? Did he finally embrace? Did you fall into his arms at last to rest, the rage subsiding like the waves of a slumbering sea? Did you think, at last I'm free of having to choose the perfect words, the right tone of voice to make white men see what they refuse to see? At last, free of the prison of words. Home, Jimmy, the only heaven you wanted, no longer a stranger. The shouts of the village behind you.
Mm.
And one of the things when I read his work and reread it, is how contemporary it still feels. Now, he wrote in pre-Civil Rights America, up until the Civil Rights Movement. And he was an intellectual, mm-hmm. and a fine intellect he had. And he must have always felt so alone. You know, he was quite well known.
Yeah.
He had a debate in Cambridge, and with William F. Buckley Jr. And William F. Buckley Jr. was an asshole, complete asshole in that whole debate. And you talk about James Baldwin's brilliant mind debating William F. Buckley Jr., who's so entitled and so arrogant. And it was an incredible thing. And of course, the people there voted for, it was in Oxford, I'm sorry, and Jimmy Baldwin won. But really, Jimmy Baldwin lost, because so many years later, we're talking about the fact that Blacks' lives matter. You know why? Because they haven't mattered. Mm-hmm. That's why. Mm-hmm. And I'm really so supportive of, and I have to be. I mean, Black people in this country have really been mistreated. Mm-hmm. More than any other group. None of us have been slaves. Mm-hmm. Native Americans and Black people, more than any other group, have really, really, really felt the savage violence of the white man. And it's really terrible. Terrible.
I just read 2 months ago, The Fire Next Time again. And it was chilling how identical, like literally identical it is to our current situation.
Isn't it?
And, and I think, I discovered, I mean, I think what you and I have in common from the things that I'm reading, like you referenced Frantz Fanon once in a post, and you wrote a poem to Frantz Fanon, which is like amazing. But I feel like the thing that you and I have in common is that, like where you said Jimmy was alone, right? Is that as we read these writers, we're seeing our own life experience, of course, not as a Black man, right? As a gay Black man. But what I'm saying is, in James Baldwin's work, I see my own rage, my own loneliness, my whatever is going on. And, I feel like you referenced that. You just did it in the poem as well. So as you're reading James Baldwin, you're identifying with, his kind of existential experience, right? And, as well as what you said in reading The Fire Next Time, it's just, my son and I, we just watched the movie Harriet. And, he said, when did this happen? Like, when did this happen, right? And of course, it's a Hollywood version. It's not even the absolute horror of slavery. But, I had to tell my son, like, hypothetically, it ended in, 1864, but actually it has not ended. This kind of, I have, somebody just mentioned it, but you said it, they have it, Black lives have not mattered, right?
Yeah, and I think that we've been fighting the Civil War ever since it's been over. Right. We've been refighting it.
I'm sorry, Ben. I mean, I know today the Zen Project posted Today in History about a Mexicano boy in Texas that was picked up for shoplifting. He was like 11 years old. And this was, I don't know, in the 50s. And they picked up him and his cousin and told him to admit that he had stole this like $5, I don't know what. And the police started to play Russian roulette with him and ended up killing him. Like they shot him in the head from playing Russian roulette with this child. And so, the thing was just talking about, there's this thing like, those are just a few bad apples, whoever's doing the murdering, whoever's doing the confronting, the persecuting, the everything. But it's like, so do we just die because of bad apples? I mean, who does that, right? Who dies in this country because of bad apples? So, I think you just reminded me of that in talking about James Baldwin and Black Lives Matter, the current situation.
And I'm alongside with that because, we're always fighting wars. I wrote a book entitled Dreaming the End of War. And I would like to read one of the poems because it's, I wrote this poem so many years ago. And I was going to write a book of poems, Dreaming the End of War, that was about how nationalism and masculinity and violence and militarism all collided. But when I had finished the book, something happened. Two things happened. 9/11 and my father died. And I rewrote the book.
Wow.
So this is it's a series of dreams. And this is the fifth dream. Bullets and deserts and borders. A man is walking toward me. He is alone. He has been walking through the desert. He has been walking for days. He has been walking for years. His lips are dry and cracking, like a piece of spent soil. I can see his open wounds. His eyes are dark as a Tanzanian night. He discovers I have been watching, though he has long since ceased to care what others see. I ask him his name, ask him what has brought him here, ask him to name his angers and his loves, He opens his mouth to speak, but just as the words hit the air, a bullet pierces his heart. I do not know the country of the man's birth. I only know that he is from the desert. He has the worn look of despair that only rain can give you. That is all I know. He might have been born in Jerusalem. He might have been born in Egypt. He might have been the direct descendant of a pharaoh. His name might have been Ptolemy. His name might have been Moses or Jesus or Mohammed. He might have been a prophet. He might have been a common thief. He might have been a terrorist, or he might have just been another man destined to be worn down by the ceaseless, callous storms. He might have come from a country called Afghanistan. He might have been looking for a well. His dreams were made of water, his lips touching water. Yes, that is what he was dreaming. I could still hear the sound of the bullets. The man reappears. It does not matter that I do not ask him, that I do not want him in my dreams. He is searching through the rubble of what was once his house. There are no tears on his face. His lips still yearn for water. I wake. I begin to believe that the man has escaped from Auschwitz. Perhaps he sinned against the Nazis, or because he was a collaborator, or because he was Jewish, or because he loved another man. He has come to the desert looking for a place he can call home. I fall asleep, trying to give the man a name. The man is now walking toward a city that is no longer there. I am the man. I see clearly. I am awake now. It is me. It has taken me a long time to know that I am a Palestinian. I am an Israeli. I am a Mexican. I am an American. I am a busboy in a tall building that is about to collapse. I am attending a Seder, and I am tasting my last bitter herb. I am a boy who has learned all his prayers. I am bowing toward Mecca in a house whose roof will soon collapse on my small frame. I am a servant. I shine shoes and wash the feet of the rich. I am an illegal. I am a Mexican who hates all Americans. I am an American who hates all Mexicans. I am a Palestinian who hates all Israelis. I am an Israeli who hates all Palestinians. I am a Palestinian Jew who hates himself. I am dying of all this knowledge. I am dying of thirst. I am a river that will never know water again. I am becoming dust. I am walking toward my home. Mexico City, Washington, Mecca, Jerusalem. I don't know. I don't know. I am walking in the desert. I see that I am reaching a border. A bullet is piercing my heart. And the whole idea, I think all of us who are writers and poets understand just somewhere inside of us that we are all connected. And we are all connected. You know, we can't disconnect ourselves from each other because we are all connected. We're connected to the earth, we're connected to all living things, and we're connected to each other. Whether I like it or not, I'm connected to the President of the United States, a man who sits in the White House. Somehow I am connected to him, he's a human being. Though I think he's lost his humanity, he's still a human being. And, you know, someone, you know, a policeman who kills a black man, it's connected to him, will always be connected to him. It's through violence, but through hatred, but connected. Um, the white man who owned a slave is intimately connected to the slave and the slave to him. It doesn't have to be good, the connection, but we cannot avoid the fact that we are all connected. We should take charge then. I think I write poems, this poem, recognizing that I am all of those things. I'm not all of those things, of course, but I am. I don't have any children, but all the children of the world are mine. I'm an adult. They belong to all of us. It is our job to take care of the children of the world. And we don't do that.
Yeah, I think that I feel that, this moment of that we're living in, we don't have to go far for conflict, like it's in our own family, right? I mean, I have conservative family members, and it's not the first time historically. I just finished reading Gioconda Belli's autobiography, The Country Under My Skin, and she talks about it within her whole family, that there were people, supporting the Contras, and there were people supporting the Sandinistas, right? So this dynamic of us being in family and having, such opposing feelings about what's happening, and that each of us has to face that, right? And there is this feeling, like you said, that we can separate. Okay, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't want anything to do with you, etc. But the reality is, I love my older brother. We went through hell together growing up. We don't agree on things. I don't want to be separated from my brother. Yet, it's this conversation I think all of us are having is, how do we stay connected through, the turmoil all of us are, whatever it is, whatever everyone's justification is for how they're feeling, whatever my brother, and it's a lot. So we're just in this moment that's always existed, but I feel like it's amplified right now. But I have a question, Benjamin. It's 2:26. We're supposed to be 20 minutos. I'm happy to keep talking to you, but I just want to ask you a question, and then if you can read, 2 or 3 more poems for us. But, you write about it a lot actually on Facebook, which is the time that we're in. And I think I responded to you one time, and, in so many, personally at this time that we're in, I've never seen so much coraje in the hearts of the Latino men that my father, my little brother, my friends, on social media, just this odio for what's happening in this country that I've never seen before. Odio is this hatred, right? And you comment a lot on what's happening right now. And I guess I just want to ask you, what is your encouragement to us as artists, as writers, as raza, like to, really create something out of this moment? There's so much suffering happening right now. What can we do in this coyuntura, in this historical moment that we're in, right? If you can leave us with some palabras, and then if you can read some final poems for us.
Well, I really believe that it's no small thing to raise your voice in a public way, because you're saying no to this. You can't stop it. I don't have the power to stop it. I have the power to say, I say no, and to do that is to keep your dignity. Is to say, what matters in this life is that we keep our dignity, and that we won't let anybody take it away, because that's all we have. You don't let people take your dignity away. And when we see other people taking other people's dignity away, we say no. No, you cannot do that. We all have our dignity, and if we can do that, if we can keep our dignity, then we can keep a sense of self, and that we've lived a life worth living. that we refuse to take other people's dignity away, and when we have, we didn't do it on purpose, and we ask for forgiveness. It's important to ask for forgiveness. It's important to be humble, and I think raising your voice is humble. It's not as if you're raising your voice to. I mean, some people raise their voice to tell off the world. I'm not interested in telling off the world. You know, like the world doesn't care. But I raise my voice to say, someone will hear me. Someone will hear my voice, and that voice and it will give them hope. It will help reinforce their dignity and believe in goodness and decency and all things beautiful. And as I say that, you know, we've learned the language, we've learned too well the language of violence, and we must relearn the language of the rain, which is the earth that is our life. And we're so ungrateful. It's ingratitude. And, you know, the earth has forgiven us so many times. It's going to stop forgiving us sometime soon. And the earth will go on, but we will not be able to live on this earth because we've done this. We have done this, and it's terribly important. Like, what do our books matter? We're not going to, if there's no earth, there's not going to be, you know, a future. You're going to say, oh yeah, people in the future are going to read my books. They're not going to be any people. They're going to be life, to save the earth and to be the kind of people that understand that we're not just connected to, we're connected to all living things, not just to human beings. And that we have to understand that. And we don't. We really don't. And that means that those who do have to fight harder. You know, because we're fighting for everything. This is everything. Now, it's everything. It's not just like a difference of opinion. You know, the polar bear is going to be extinct soon. But, you know, the scientists are saying that. You know, people don't believe in science, but when the polar bear's gone, the polar bear's gone. You know, and we shouldn't exile each other. We shouldn't make each other extinct. We have done that to peoples. We've done that to native peoples, and we've made their languages extinct and their cultures extinct. And we have to stop. And I think that writing and poetry makes us kinder people, better people, more thoughtful people. We write and we say, is that true what I just said? And we rewrite it if it isn't. Just because it sounds nice doesn't mean that it's true. And so we always question ourselves. And I think, you know, to be, you know, my father once told me, he said, if you die, if you die, and you can say to yourself, every dollar I came by in this world, every dollar I earned, I came by honestly. And to be able to say that. And, you know, a lot of people can't. They can't. No one that works in pharmaceuticals can say that. You know, I don't think, you know, that's not an honest dollar.
Yeah.
You know.
Benjamin, can you read us 3 more poems?
Well, I'm going to read one more because my poems are all so long. Okay. But I'm going to read you one more. And they really are long. I don't have any short poems anymore. But this is the prologue. This is the first poem too. Oh, it's here. I think it's in Give Me the End of War. I think it's a prologue to it. Yes, it's a prologue to Give Me the End of War. It's called Do Not Mind the Bombs. In Belgium, I remember they called this day White Monday. Belgium was my home when I was learning words like God and doubt and faith. Belgium was my home when I entered the country called man. There in the land where I learned to fall in love with learning. Winter always stayed and stayed. The days too dark, the rains incessant, pounding, and all the sleepers dreamed of sun and shirtless days, shirtless, shoeless days. I remember trains, leaves, trees. Remember, too, that aging, tired woman who told me why the trees grew straight and tall in rows in Belgium's rain-soaked earth. I remember what she said. The trees we planted there, we planted them in rows. When the war was finally won, I pictured her young, a handsome husband at her side. At last the war was done, at last. And before they planted crops, they planted trees. The trees the war had stolen from the earth. What the bombs had not destroyed, we chopped for fuel. Their stumps and branches gave us warmth. The land was bare and spent. The earth, it reeked of guns and blood and rotting flesh. And so we planted trees. And as we worked, we found reminders of the war. A rifle, empty shells, the remains of a man, a bullet through his chest, his uniform turning to dust. We called the priest and blessed the bones. A boy. I knew he'd been a boy. Belgium, English, French, bah. He was a boy. I cried that night for all the world had lost, then woke and finished planting. And through the years, we watched the growing trees. Before my mother died, she went from tree to tree, kissing leaves and branches. Have you gone mad? I yelled, and she screamed back, I am at last in love. She smelled of leaves and bark the night before she breathed her last. The day I buried her, I leaned against a tree and wept. I swear, I smelled her breath as I leaned against that tree. Today, I hear the woman's voice. As I read the morning news, the news of bombs, of all the deaths, Americans, Iraqis, children, women, men, dead, like pie, the blood and bodies run into infinity. I walk outside, the sky as clear as simple boyhood words, mama, papa, y agua. Oh, for a day when this would be my only task, to sit and memorize the blueness of a sky. Better now to study trees that grow on desert sands than to study war. So I began to count the leaves on limbs of waking trees. I knew that wars are raging everywhere, even in my heart. Do not mind the bombs. Do not mind them, not today. I wandered through my yard, examining the plants. I lost some to the freeze, but most survived. I touch and kiss the tender leaves and speak to them. Half crazed and half expecting trees and plants and shrubs to kiss me back. Perhaps today they'll kiss me back. I touch a desert bush, the yellow flowers bursting like a flame, spring first blaze of light. The dog running up and down the yard, then rolling on the grass to scratch her back. I laugh and speak to her. The wars are everywhere. I'll plant another tree, something to survive the torture of the sun, something to withstand 1,000 years of drought. I touch a tree I planted years ago. I touch and touch. Oh, do not mind the bombs today. Kiss me back.
Wow, thank you so much for joining us. I turned 48 years old on
48 years old.
Tuesday.
Oh, you know, the 40s is the best. They're the best.
It really is. I am, you know, I'm happier than I've ever been. But really, you know, to have you here with us is like the best birthday gift ever. So thank you so much for.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
And
Happy birthday.
I think you know this already, but you know, I really want to leave with this, which is your work and your example, you know, changes lives. It improves lives. So I want to really thank you for that, Benjamin.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Happy
Okay,
birthday.
La Palabra. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday with Matt Cedillo. Please tune in. Y hasta luego. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you.